Good evening and welcome to Ordinary Meeting of Council on the 22nd of July 2024. Acknowledgement of Country. Acknowledgement of Country. Lithgow City Council acknowledges the Wiradjuri elders, past and present, of the Wiradjuri Nation, the original custodians of the lands on which the Lithgow's communities reside. The Council also extends our respects to our neighbouring nations. Declarations of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. All councillors are present tonight. Declarations of interest tonight, are there any?
I might make a declaration of interest, non-pecuniary interest in the very first notice of motion from Councillor Bryce, just as she's bringing up relation to police checks. So the current police officer that I will be speaking.
Thank you. Non-significant, Councillor Goodwin?
Sorry, non-significant.
Yes, thank you. Can I have somebody move we accept that, please? Councillor Bryce, have a seconder. Councillor McGee, all those in favour say aye. Thank you. Ethical decision making and conflicts of interest. Oath of affirmation of office. Councillors are reminded of the oath and affirmation taken of office made under section 233A of the Local Government Act 1993 when elected. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 24th of June 2022. Could I have a mover, please?
Move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin? No. Councillor Bryce? Nothing. I'll put the motion then if there's no more speakers. All those in favour say aye. Against? Thank you.
I'll have my name. I'll have my name. You're calling a division?
Yes, certainly. All those in favour of the motion, thank you. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee. Anyone else? Against? Councillor Marnie, thank you, Councillor Marnie. Against? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring and Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Declare that carried. Moving on. Public forum tonight.
I'll move the confirmation of the minutes for the extraordinary council meeting.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Leslie. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Moving right ahead now, commemorations and announcements. It's been a tragic loss for many families in our local government area, with many well-known identities passing away. Some of these people have been fundraising in our area for over 2 to 3 to 4 decades, many, many decades. On behalf of Lithgow City Council, I would like to acknowledge the families and friends of these people and know that we are thinking of them. Thank you. No mirror minute tonight. Moving on. I did ask, nobody seemed to be moving at all. No, thank you. Notices of motion 2.1, Councillor Bryce, police and working with children checks. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder, thank you.
I'll second it.
Councillor McGee, I think, sorry. I think it was Councillor McGee. Councillor Bryce.
I've brought this motion to the council, and the fact is that we are one of the few governing bodies that we don't have police checks, working with children checks or anything else. If you join the local sporting committee, you have to have a police check. On Link as the council representative, and I'm only there as an observer, I still have to have a police check and a working with children check. Our workers are expected to have a working with children check and police checks done. We're out in the community. We're out in the community, mixing with our communities, invited to schools, invited to a lot of events, and they assume that we would have some of these because they're they have an assumption where they've got to have it as well. I know Mace probably won't be able to be enforced by council, but I think we should have a debate. We should have a debate about this. We should be proactive about police checks and working with children checks for all councillors sitting at council to ensure the community that we're safe to be around. Domestic violence is on the rise. There's quite high statistics on domestic violence against women, the death of women, violence against children in communities. We need to show that we stand by our communities and want this stopped. And by having our checks done, it is a way of showing that we don't support this type of violence.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor McGee?
Yes, I totally support the motion. I don't think it would be that difficult to enforce such a motion. If the police check and working with children check were done once a councillor was elected, then it could be dealt with on a case-by-case basis as to what course of action may or may not be taken. I think as the leaders of the community, we should be able to, without hesitation, provide this sort of information, because there should be no doubt as to our integrity. And as Councillor Bryce mentioned, the rise and the current status of domestic violence in all communities throughout the country is just completely unacceptable. And to think that we might end up with some people like that on council would be just unacceptable, to say the least. So I totally support the motion. I think that we could put something together if this basis was put forward, was approved tonight, then it's not asking for much. And I think that it could be worked on from there and make something really practical out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGee. Councillor Coleman?
On the 2nd of June, it was reported by the Mamma Mia publication that 3 women in 48 hours were allegedly murdered in Australia by men. We as a council can listen and learn about the needs of women of Lithgow via the Women's Advisory Committee, in which we have done so. We should be empowering whenever possible, supporting local community groups through advocacy, which then provides support to the families affected by domestic violence. As for this notice of motion, I need to understand its purpose. What is it trying to achieve? As stated in the management comment, it would not be possible for council to enforce. There is no legal pathway for council to take action. We are hired, and any other future councillor are elected. My concern is, very basically, how is this to be enforced?
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Ring?
Working with children check is a requirement for anyone who works or volunteers in child-related work in New South Wales. It involves national police check, criminal history record check, and a review of reportable workplace conduct. We don't work with children. Going to a school or to a function where children are present is not relevant. The Act in relation to working with children does not apply to councillors nor board directors unless you are actually physically working with them. And you've got to be very careful in trying to enforce it. In fact, you can't enforce it in this environment. In terms of police checks, well, bottom line is if you've got certain criminal history, you're excluded from council. That's it. This has been described by the management comment. And in relation to boards, particularly ASIC boards as well, you can have a criminal record. You can be barred from being on a board for 5 to 15 years. And it depends on the actual crime on whether or not you are precluded from being a board director. Same with council. There's nothing in the code of conduct, and quite frankly, There's nothing in the commentary or what's been discussed here that gives justification for it.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right reply, Councillor Marnie. Oh, Councillor Mark.
Look, I'd like to speak to it, and I'm trying to get some clarity over it. I work in an industry where staff are required to get working with children checks, and that relates to work-related, child-related work. There are other staff working in the same team who don't. And I just want to be clear whether by mandating it that I'm actually in a position to, and the administration is in a position to actually deliver on that. I fully support the Office of Children's Guardian, and under the Children's Guardian Act 2019, that we need to have child safety embedded in our workplace, our culture, and the actions we take. We can do things indirectly to make sure places are designed to be safer places for children and for minors. So I don't have any issue with it. I certainly don't see myself not getting or working with children in any way supporting domestic violence. I think that's an issue that we, in every opportunity as a council, need to stand up and be very clear. I think as men on council, as men on community groups, wherever we find ourselves, we need to stand up against domestic violence on every occasion. I'm just not clear that we're not building something that we're unable to administer, because I'm not actually seeing this playing out in other workplaces. So I'm happy to do it. I have no problem doing it, but I'm just not sure that the administration is in a position to insist the councillors do it, and that it acts as a preclusion to becoming a councillor. So I'm not altogether clear the exact intent, but as I said, look, I support the principles very much, but I just can't see that it's we've actually got the pathway for it to work.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Right of reply, Councillor. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
I want to say something similar. It's just the idea of getting it on the table, and I'm very happy to support it if that's the case, for getting it on for discussion even. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Right of reply, Councillor Bryce. Oh, sorry. Councillor Goodman.
Sorry, Miss Dave. Police criminal history checks for councillors is essential to ensure their integrity and trustworthiness. These checks identify potential conflicts of interest, corruption, and unethical behaviour that could be identified and prevented in the future. It helps to uphold the public confidence and ensures those in positions of power have a clean record and are fit to serve the community. We should be held to the highest ethical standards. A criminal history check is a crucial step in promoting transparency, accountability, and good governance. A working with children's check is essential for councillors, as we're in a position of authority. We need to ensure the safety of our young children. This helps prevent potential risks of harm or abuse of children, and ensures people in a position of authority they are suitable to work with children. It would only be prudent for councillors to volunteer to have their police check and working with children's check and make it available to the council. We shouldn't have an issue with this. However, time and time again, people who prey on vulnerable people place themselves in a position of power and authority to gain access to them. The power and authority provides them with opportunities to exert control and influence over their victims, allowing them to avoid detection or scrutiny, enabling them to continue their predatory action unchecked. If councillors do not have a police check or working with children's check, they should have to disclose to each school, community, organisation or council committee that they are attending prior to attending that. How can a councillor attend these groups and advocate for domestic violence, for example, when they've been convicted of domestic violence offences? Although I agree with the motion Councillor Bryce has brought to the council, I can't vote for it. I believe it should be voluntary and a responsible action by each councillor at the start of the term. It will be hard to police running for council. However, I do believe that if you haven't volunteered the police check or working with children's check, the councillor should disclose this prior to any interactions with children or committees.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Councillor Leslie.
I intend to vote against this motion, but I also will, in the next week, fortnight or so, go and get this checked for myself. But I will vote against it because I believe that it's a bit of dog whistling.
Your last word, Councillor Leslie? I couldn't hear that.
I believe it's not. It's can't be enforced, so I'm not going to vote for it.
No worries at all. Councillor Bryce, thank you.
We do work with children. We go to the schools. We attend functions at schools. Planet Youth was a full day event where councillors could attend. We were amongst young people. I was at Planet Youth. I was there all day. You know, we do work with kids. And even though it does the regulations say that conviction of certain election-related or criminal offences involving imprisonment excludes people from being on council, there's no way of monitoring that. No way, none at all. There's no monitoring of that. So I believe that police checks and working with children checks are vital for our community. Next year, the national conference in Canberra, nobody will be able to turn up without a police check. If you sit on council next term and want to sit on the link board, you must have a children's working with children check, a criminal check, and an NDIS workers check. That is mandatory to sit on that board, even as an observer, as a council rep. We need to start to be a bit more proactive of what we stand for as councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? Against? So the motion is lost. Thank you. I will call a division on that. Thank you. All those in favour of the motion? Councillor McGee, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Bryce, and Councillor Statham. Thank you. Against? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie, and Councillor Goodwin. Thank you. (2.2) Notice of motion, Councillor Ring, Rural Waste Management. Have a mover, thank you.
Yeah, I'll move that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Have a seconder, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Ring.
16th of May, all councillors received an email from Mr. Peter Evans concerning a letter you received from council. You've all been sent that. Everyone's seen it. It's not the only person from the rural area that's had issues with waste management by council. At the Meadow Flat facility, cement blocks were located, preventing youth reversing to the skip to unload rubbish from their from their trucks. The response from council was the blocks will stop illegal dumping because of the location of the security camera. The facility is for domestic waste only. The council does not support standing on vehicles to unload rubbish. Residents who may infrequently use the facility and have more waste are recommended to travel to Lithgow Waste Facility. Provision of a satisfactory waste service is critical for our residents. They pay rates, they pay a waste fee, and we need to ensure that these transfer stations are fit for purpose. Now, it may be dangerous lifting a not bin off a ute and tipping it into the skip. I accept that. But equally, it is dangerous for a person with a heavy auto bin to lift multiple bins off a truck or a ute and then lift it up into a skip bin. I've done this when I was working for National Parks, and if you've got a heavy load, it's a two-person job. And for elderly people, and this has been a complaint of Glen Davis residents, it is an issue. And I appreciate that waste management is a complex issue. We are required as an organisation to meet both state and federal policies and legislation. But the design of our transfer stations should meet the needs of our community. Either the skip bins are lowered down, making it easier for people to deposit their rubbish, or like the facility at Sunny Corner, you have a ramp built up beside the skip so people can easily throw the rubbish in. without lifting. Or, yet again, there are mechanical devices that are available that can be used to facilitate the lifting of auto bins without causing injury or back problems. And given the size of our LGA, for someone from Bogey who is a resident who pays their rates, is entitled to use the transfer station and the bins, to tell them if they've got 5 or more auto bins or large amount of waste coming to the tip, that's a 200-kilometre round trip. At $2 a litre, that's a hell of an expensive trip to come in. And we need to be facilitating a way to improve it for our residents. Those with curbside services get the bulky waste a couple of times a year. And I think we should be looking at whether or not that can be extended to some of our rural properties. Be it you can take your heavy item down to the transfer station, it's picked up on the day, but we need to be looking at it. So all I'm asking for is for a report from management on the waste for transfer stations to include design modifications to minimise risk of injury to residents and enhance site security. The cameras are good, but why aren't we locking the facilities and providing keys? We can provide master keys, security keys. Potential design modifications to increase resource recovery at these facilities. The capacity to offer rural residents a bulky goods waste collection service. And for a lot of people in the Capertee Valley, a timeline for the completion of the Glen Davis transfer station. That's now been going on for the better part of 7 or 8 years. We had funding, and I do appreciate the cleanup of the tip was expensive and there was waste material there, but the current arrangement needs to be finalised. We need to get it done and done properly so it meets the needs of our community. Thank you.
Councillor Leslie, thank you.
The recommendation is to ask for a report. I think that's a reasonable request under the circumstances.
Thank you. Any other people wishing to speak tonight? Councillor Bryce?
Through you, Mayor, can I ask whichever director is where are we up to with the waste facilities?
Mr. Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, is that
Point of order. What was that? I didn't hear a word you said. What did you say? What was?
Excuse me.
Point of order, Mayor. It's irrelevant whether it's on microphone or not.
Councillor Coleman, I'm happy to listen to your complaint.
There is an issue with Councillor Bryce and I don't know who else across the room, but there was something that was said. And then I was just told to mind my own business.
Well, Councillor Bryce, would you please apologise to Councillor Coleman?
I'm
Councillor
sorry.
Bryce, I'm giving you one chance. Thank you. Well, you've got next time, you're out the door. I'm sorry. I don't pay favourites at all. So it's not necessary to say that. Councillor Coleman, I'll apologise. Move on.
There's no need for you to apologise, Mayor. It wasn't your mistake to make.
Mr. Trapp, thank you.
through you, Mayor Statham? So in regards to our facilities, I assume we're talking about in general the waste transfer stations. So one of the ones that we're speaking about here, for example, Meadow Flat, that's a project this year in the operational plan to have a fairly significant overhaul there. So the report that will come back to council following the resolution will detail what the plans are there and what will be occurring, as well as Glen Davis and the changes that are occurring there. We're currently in the process of preparing the tender documents for our next waste services contract, in which a lot of these points can be included, or we can work with contractors and tenderers to discuss and look at the pricing associated with those, and then bring that back to the council for an adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Councillor Goodwin.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, certainly.
Director Trapp. Did you say that it's coming back to the next council? A report is going to be in the next council papers?
Yeah, so the report following this and what's been mentioned here, I'll bring back to the August meeting.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor O'Connor.
Yep, I agree with one thing that it should be locked at night, because anybody that would bring a load of asbestos and dump it at any of these facilities, it could be, if it's friable asbestos, it could be closed down for 6 months by the time it's cleaned up and get a hygienist in and do all the testing. So I think it is vital that there should be some way of locking these places up in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Marnie.
Just want to thank Councillor Ring for bringing this forward. I know this has been an issue you've championed along the way. I think it's important. At the Waste Management Group just recently, we talked to all of these issues, and I think the thing that's come out of my term on council and the work that the waste team has done has significantly changed the way we manage waste in this area for the positive. The last component that I think, and Councillor Ring's quite right to bring forward, is how we interface with the rural communities. They've got long distance travels to bring them into Lithgow, to be able to have these transfer stations working safely and efficiently. There's some good suggestions around there, perhaps looking at locks and those being issued to residents. That might seem like a big bundle of keys, but it may help manage some of the issues Councillor O'Connor rightly raised, that we can end up with hazardous waste and transporting that out of area, if you can illegally dump it, can be a very significant cost saving, very unethically, but that's a problem that we have exposure, particularly things which are on close proximity to the Great Western Highway. So I think it's a good discussion, and I appreciate the report coming back, and again, really acknowledge the great work that's happened in all the urban setting, but this is your last real big challenge to get this right, and I'm confident the way we've gone will land it, but I thank Councillor Ring for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor McGee.
Yes, I find it quite a good motion in that for 3 years now we've been aware of the Glen Davis issues and other issues around the country areas. I do believe that it has to be addressed and finalised. I think we're well on the way though. I think we've made great leaps as far as it goes. But if we can have an information session, as this motion requests, and a report back as to where we're at, the things that have worked, and incorporating bulky goods days for those further out areas, things like that, to really wrap it up and get a really constructive thing happening for the area, I think that it would benefit everybody.
Before I ask for right of reply, I did put a report in for this first week in May. I've had many phone calls to Mr. Evans and to the General Manager and also to Matt Trapp. So this has been an ongoing situation for a long time. Right of reply, thank you, Councillor.
Mr. Evans is not the only person who has concerns with our waste transfer facilities or the levels of service that we provide to our rural residents, with a number of people having sent emails to all councillors. This is not a criticism of the staff. The facility at the tip is great. The community have embraced it. It's good. But this is about meeting the needs of those people in our community who often feel neglected by council and see this council as being Lithgow-centric. They need to be provided with a good standard of service that meets their needs, doesn't break our budget, and also allows us to meet government, both state and federal policy and legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Right, thank you.
Call a division.
Division, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Statham, against, Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Bryce. So the motion was carried. Thank you. Declare carried. 3.1, tender Lithgow sewer
Yes,
treatment.
Nathan, can I move a motion, please?
Yes.
To a procedural motion
Yes, you can.
to block these admin reports 3.1 to 3.7.
Can I have a second,
They're all
please?
tender assessments, unless someone wants
Thank
to
you,
talk
Bryce.
about something.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Goodwin, would you like to speak to that briefly so I can get a...
Sorry, Mayor, they're all dealing with tender assessments.
Yes.
They're all basically the same, unless someone wants to speak specifically about a certain one. I think they should be blocked.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Sorry, we should have said something. Yes. Yes. Mr. Edgecombe will just clarify one of the items. Thank you.
3.4, was it?
Yep, there it is. Thank you, Mayor Statham, through you. There is an error in item number 3.4. I know that one of the councillors, Councillor Ring, raised this, and I just wanted to clarify that even though point number 3 of the recommendation of that report is that State Asphalt Services be included as part of the panel under their schedule of rates for works, and the table within that report indicates that they didn't submit a schedule of rates. That's actually incorrect. They submitted a late addendum to their response, and that schedule of rates was received. So it's an acceptable position to include them within the proposed recommendation.
Respect, Mayor Statham, I'd like to actually speak to these motions. I believe they're straightforward. Considerable money. As long as one councillor opposes it, it doesn't happen. That's the code of meeting practice.
All right. Unfortunately, that is lost, Councillor Goodwin. So you're still moving the motion. Would you like to speak to that motion?
Motion is he moving, sorry?
Well,
he moved
all right,
the procedural motion.
He's moved a procedural motion. Okay, that has failed because of the code of meeting practice. So it's manners to go back to Councillor Goodwin to see if he would like to still move that and have a say. Thank you. Right. I'll start.
To move the next motion if we can. Item 3.1.
Thank you. Have a second to thank you.
3.1.
Could I have a second to thank you?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'll speak briefly to it. I appreciate why Councillor Goodwin may want to group them. There's a big body of activity. Can I say to the General Manager, if this is your first business paper that's full of doing, I'm very excited about where we're going. The fact that we've got 7 pieces in a row where we're getting out there and initiating projects is great. This is particularly pleasing to again see more investment into the sewerage infrastructure. So I just again applaud that we got hopefully going into an era where we're going to see significant action in our area. So thank you.
Councillor Ring, thank you.
2 questions, if I may. Mayor Statham, through you to the administration. We're being asked to approve a contract of nearly $2.4 million, excluding GS2. As for an inlet works facility or whatever, but I mean, I did sort of look out, I've got an idea of what it is, but $2.4 million is a lot of money. The report's not actually telling me what we're getting for $2.4 million. So I'd like to understand what it is we're actually buying. And the second question, if I may, is does the contract require the primary contractor to engage locals where appropriate? Because
Mr. Trapp, thank you.
To you, Mayor Statham. So to your first point, Councillor Ring, the Inlet Works acts as our primary treatment facility, so it removes inorganic materials from the sewage, so rags, grit, things like that, things that can't break down through chemical or biological treatment processes. So it takes those out, so our downstream infrastructure isn't affected by grit and other items that could clog pumps and the like. That's probably the quickest way of putting that.
I appreciate it. That's entirely different to what I read. So what I read wasn't correct. So I'm glad I asked the question. Thank you.
Okay, I'll note that for the next tender I'll put up. I'll put that in. To your second point, in the tender response, the contractors are able to specify what subcontractors they have. Until they're appointed, the tenderer hasn't said what subbies they will engage with, but they have outlined a process of how they will engage, and local preference is certainly within that. So they'll undertake to try to get local contractors involved during the process through their own process and then working with council.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Anyone else wishing to speak? No? Right of reply. Thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, just to appreciate that the local procurement policy element is being applied in these tenders. So there's something that I did work for at the front end of this council term, and I'm sorry, Councillor Bryce, didn't catch it, mate. No, okay. That I worked very hard for to introduce, to look at how we can better.
Point of order. Can you guys stop picking on me? Can you? All I did was turn a page, Councillor Marnie. Please.
Yeah.
We're not here as children. We're here as adults, supposedly fairly intelligent adults. So please don't wreck the last meeting of this main meeting of this council. Act civilly. Thank you.
Well, I pride myself on my behaviour in this council, and I'm not calling nobody out. If there's,
I'm just giving
if there's
everyone
nothing going
an overall
on,
warning.
I'm silent. Be assured.
So sorry,
Anyway, I'd
Councillor
like
Marnie.
to finish where I was
yes,
going.
finish where you're speaking.
This is an important part of strengthening local economies, is to have a local content component of your local procurement policy. What I'm pleased to see is it's actually being applied in our tender process. So thank you to the staff on that. And you can do it at different levels. It doesn't mean that a local contractor will win it, but you can emphasise the importance of use of local suppliers and materials and contractors as subcontractors.
I'll put the motion. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. (3.2) Tender water mains renewal project. Could I have a move? Thank you.
Happy to second.
Councillor Marnie.
I won't speak long to this, but again, critical infrastructure, and again, another very promising piece of work going on in Wallerawang. So again, well done.
Councillor Ring?
No, but nothing to add to that.
Right. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I want to know who KHP, where are they from, or what's their?
Not sure, Mr. Trapp. Thank you.
So KHP are a Western Sydney company. They've been doing exclusively quite a bit of work in Sydney Water and a couple of other places, so they come quite highly regarded.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie, right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Point 3, tender evaluation for Main Street
I'll move this.
/ Cupro Street, Lithgow Stormwater Improvement Stage 1. Councillor Bryce, you're moving this.
Yep.
Thank you. Have a second. Thank you.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce.
This was in our budget to get this done. We got some funding for this, so it's good to see it's finally coming up. This has been an affected area for at least, I've lived in Cupro, Calero Street area for 20 odd years, and this area has been affected the whole time I've lived there. So it's very good to see that this is finally coming to an end.
Councillor Coleman, thank you.
I too am very pleased to see that this work is going to be conducted. I grew up in Cupro Street and Calero Street have been an area very close to my heart. Both my mother and grandmother both still live in Calero Street, and I'm glad to see it coming to fruition as well.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I just want to Keen Construction Civil. Are they the company that's doing the pump stations and the sewerage works, and you're happy with those? Thank you.
Mr. Trapp, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, yes, they're the ones completing the pump station currently over in Hillcrest and Malmfields.
Mayor Statham, if I may, a question for you to the administration. It's like everyone said, I mean, it's good to see this work underway. We're doing stage one, which is on the other side of the railway line going to the creek, Farmers Creek. What about stage two? What about the work under the rail? I know we have problems with or issues with State Rail. I believe there are days or opportunities where the rail line is closed for maintenance, which means if we do work, it won't cost us. So what sort of timeline are we looking for to get that critical stage done?
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. At the moment, the approvals process to underbore the Great Western Rail Line is complex. It's going to take some time to develop the necessary documentation, burden of proof required to reassure the rail authority that there'll be no impact to the rail line whilst the underboring occurs and thereafter. So we're in the process of undertaking those geotechnical investigations now, which will complement the designs and the surveys that have already been completed, and that application process will start. But realistically, we are in the hands of Transport for New South Wales once that application goes in. They may ask several questions, they may ask none. So we're just preparing ourselves for the inevitability that occurs. But you're right, rail closures typically occur between two and four times a year. We experienced those when we built the rail over bridge in Wallerawang. And generally, it's only certain works that need to occur during a rail closure, but it's in this instance, given that it's an underbore, it will be the full scope of that project. To minimise or to maximise the benefit of this initial stage, though, previously we envisaged that this project would be delivered in one phase. But since we've split it in two, so we can get the bit done without the necessary approvals, we've factored into the design a large grate in George Coates Avenue so that all of the stormwater, the pools at Cupro Avenue can still get underneath the viaduct into the grate and down into Farmers Creek, just to maximise the benefit to the community.
If I could, Mayor, just to clarify, with the underboring, we're going under the embankment rather than below the road under the viaduct?
I would need to double check the designs, but yes, I believe it's underneath the embankment, not the road itself, because it needs to align with the pit that will be on Main Street on that side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Councillor Ring. Anybody else? Yes, Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. It's actually quite informative, this discussion. I learnt a lot from it. I'm pleased we were able to discuss it. My question is, though, if stage one, if stage two requires stage one, but stage two, for some reason, whatever the department or the railway people don't allow it or it doesn't happen, does stage one actually have benefits in its own right? And what are those benefits that stage one has in its own right?
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
So without considering stage two, the new infrastructure that's going to be installed is a triplication, essentially, of the existing infrastructure that runs from Main Street all the way to Farmers Creek. So without stage two, that infrastructure isn't going to be directly connected to the existing network. So it's entirely new infrastructure, new inlet, and two new pipes that are going to be installed to carry stormwater all the way through to Farmers Creek. So realistically, the impact won't be as significant because the new grates and inlets on Main Street, the stage two involves amplifying those, building bigger inlets and bigger box gutters in the Main Street, but it still will be significant. So it's difficult to quantify exactly, but it still will have a major impact and improvement on on stormwater and stormwater ponding in that area.
No, thank you. I appreciate that you'd obviously build stage one to the extent needed when stage two is implemented. But I'm pleased to hear that should stage two not happen, then stage one, even at would still be very beneficial to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trapp. Sorry, Mr. Edgecombe. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie?
Obviously, this is an issue that I've taken a lot of interest in when it's coupled with the sewage issue in that locality, particularly given that we've got food businesses there. This is going a big step towards, both those bodies of work are going a big step towards rectifying that situation. I'm pleased that, as a number of councillors stated, this has been an issue that's been going on for 20 years. I appreciate what's happened in the last term, that this is in fact moving ahead. Also want to acknowledge that councillors don't write grants. Councillors don't do the lobbying, they don't do the preparatory work. I just want to acknowledge the staff who have been behind that, because it doesn't happen without the staff putting that time into the work. I'm optimistic that the 3 red zones for urbanised flooding, I hope, will be dealt with in the next 3 to 5 years. Sooner if we can, but we are moving on it, which is really exciting. I've just got a question to ask. There's a closure of the sports ground. There's a project timeline of 130 days. Is that what we're looking at, as the closure of the sports ground? Just so we've got a bit of a picture going out there.
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
About 2/3 of the work, sorry, through you, Mayor Statham, about 2/3 of the work does impact the playing fields themselves. Yeah. So there will be necessary impacts, but it's a once in a lifetime really opportunity to amplify historic stormwater infrastructure. So we will do our very best to work with each sporting body and move them to alternative facilities at no cost and with minimal impact as possible, whilst those works progress. But there may be unintended or unfortunate issues, but we'll do our very best to mitigate them.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wish? Councillor McGee?
Yes, just a quick question regarding the improvement of the stormwater situation. With the reflux valves opportunity that we've made available to people down there, could we have an update on how many people may have applied for reflux valves, and just what's happening with that?
Mr. Trapp, you can take this on notice if you like.
It's not relevant.
Excuse me?
It is. Look, I called a point of order. It's not relevant. I'd like a ruling on it, please.
I'm making a ruling. I've just asked Mr. Trapp to contact Councillor McGee outside this meeting. Thank you. By Councillor Bryce. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Item 3.4, I&E, the 22nd of the 7th, 2024, tender assessment bitumen seal package program. So 2024-25. Could I have a mover? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ring. Have a seconder? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. Councillor Coleman. Councillor Ring. Thank you.
I know Councillor Mr. Edgecombe did respond to my query that I'd sent through earlier, but I just want to confirm again that there was a schedule of rates submitted. So it was just a typo on the form. No, that's fine. Look, I have no problem. I think it's a good report. That's the only thing that I had a concern with.
Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Yes, on Friday afternoon it was brought to my attention that I'd been criticised in regards to not taking particular attention to roads in Portland, and I can honestly say that if anyone within the local government area wants to talk about roads, I will listen. I dare say that any current or future councillor is happy to talk about the state of roads as well. I do, however, thank you.
Point of order, this is about a tender.
Yes, I'm not sure where you're going with that, Councillor.
That's right, I'll get to the point then, Miss, if you
yes,
know.
Please keep on topic. It's only fair for everyone else.
Yep, no problem. I'm pleased to see that in this report, roads in Portland are mentioned alongside Rydal and Hartley. I understand and respect that council has a priority list. I also understand that road maintenance goes hand in hand with our capital works program. I fully support this work. And thank you for the report. It's actually a good report, and it's good to see that we're getting it done.
Speakers tonight, thank you. Councillor.
Yes, it's good to see these roads getting done, and it's a reflection on the state of the economy. We get 11 tenders. When times were busy, you might get 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
No, just put it, please,
I'll
mate.
put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. I need to read it out because of the people watching live streaming. Supply and delivery of bitumen emulsion tender, CNSWJO. So this is obviously from the JO organisation, which you probably realise. Have a seconder for that, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Ring, thank you.
It's good to see benefit coming out of the membership of the JO. Several councils working together, obviously given us a far better financial outcome than we would have achieved on our own. And the documentation attached to this report was interesting reading, so congratulations to the staff.
Councillor Marnie, thank you.
Just to reiterate what Councillor Ring spoke to, the whole strategic procurement can be local, but can be regional. And what we're seeing in these reports tonight is using those levers to get maximum benefit for us. So again, it's a very good report.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
No, put it, please, Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 3.6 tender assessment, civil works package for 24-25 program. Could I have a mover, please?
Yeah, happy to move.
Have a seconder, thank you.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring. Councillor Marnie.
Just briefly, just picking up on what Councillor O'Connor said, it's good to see a diverse range of tenders. Also pleasing to see a good number of local people involved in those deliveries. So again, a good outcome there.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Ring.
No, I just think it's good to have the scheduler rates with us as well, so we can get work done. It makes sense to do a tender of this nature. We can get fixed price, but we've seen particularly the last 12 months, we have incidents that occur. Having a scheduler rates allows for work to be commenced immediately. It doesn't devalue the tender process. This is actually a very good aspect of tendering, where you've got a scheduler rates that can be used over the 12 months. They're locked into it, and we get a good outcome. Thank you.
Right of reply. Sorry. Anybody wishing to speak? No. Councillor Ring had right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Unanimous. Item 3.7, tender assessment, asphalt resealing package 24-25 program. Could I have a mover? Thank you.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bryce.
There's not much to say. Everything's been said about these tenders. It's the same thing. This one's 3 streets in Lithgow and 1 in Wang. It's not much different to anything else that we've talked about. Good amount of tenderers coming in, and it's good to see that's happening.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor O'Connor.
Yep, it's just good to see so much work going on for a change, and I'm very happy to see the amount of, as we say, the tenderers is extraordinary amount of tenderers for. So hopefully we're getting a good deal out of all of it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor
Councillor
Stapleton,
O'Connor.
if I could, a question
Councillor Ring.
for you to the administration. On page 34 of 91, the report states there is no history of performance with Lithgow City Council, so regular performance inspections of completed works will need to occur to ensure longevity and suitability of the delivered product. Does this imply that we don't do this with people who've worked for us before? I would have assumed that inspections, regular performance inspections of any contractor working on our roads would be undertaken as part of the course. I've also had this flagged to me from people who've actually read it, so I really would appreciate a response.
Mr. Edgecombe, thank you.
As part of any contract, through you, Mayor Statham, as part of any contract and to manage the delivery of any project, regular inspections do occur, and it's actually being structured into our project management guidelines to make sure that that's a robust requirement that's clearly outlined to the community, so they have that assurance, but it definitely occurs. I just felt that it was worth putting in black and white in this report just to indicate that because they've not performed work in this LGA before, that there was that assurance to the council that they can engage them with the confidence that we will continue to monitor their performance.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe. It's clearly just the way it's worded that rang some alarm bells for me, so I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edgecombe and Councillor Ring. Anyone else wishing to speak? No. Right reply, Councillor Bryce? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 3.8, contracts for the supply, delivery and or installation of guardrail and wire rope safety fencing. Could I have somebody move this, please? Councillor O'Connor? Have a second, thank you. Councillor Bryce? Councillor O'Connor?
Not much to say. It's guardrail and fencing. So,
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Bryce?
Pretty much what Councillor O'Connor said. It's not much to say. It's again, it's good to see that it's through the joint organisation, but there's not much else to say. It's just guardrail and fencing.
All right, thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Coleman?
Yes, Mayor Statham, I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Gurney in regards to this level of work that's going to occur. Congratulations. You've stepped into the role and we can see already that things are getting done.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Yes, yes.
Through you, Mayor Statham. Thank you, Councillor Coleman. I'd also like to commend the staff, the directors and everyone else who's been involved in making sure these tenders get to council before the caretaker period. And we're very much aware that with a new council coming in October, it may have taken a while for such reports to go to the new council. So we were determined to get them to this meeting.
Mayor, if I may, absolutely, all the staff should be congratulated.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman, and thank you, Mr. Gurney, and the staff, of course. Yeah. Councillor Leslie, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I like the idea of guardrail and wire rope safety fencing. Could I get some idea exactly whereabouts these particular guardrails would be installed?
Mr. Edgecombe.
There's nothing in. There's no mention as to where it's going in the report.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. Last year, we conducted a comprehensive signage and rail audit in the Capertee Valley. So we'll be looking to undertake significant work there. I think it's been valued at about $150,000. But aside from that, there's a location at the end of Burton Street in consultation with the residents. Whilst the causeway is being reconstructed, we identified that garbage trucks are turning around at the end and are currently making movements on the end of the footpath. So we're going to be moving the guardrail there and reinstalling it. But because it was installed decades ago, it's non-compliant and we have to replace it with new stuff. So they're the sorts of locations that we're going to be putting in.
Yeah, Mayor Statham, I may.
Yes, Councillor Ring.
This is the last tender item for the evening, but every item that we've discussed, there's been one or two items that needed to be looked at or questions asked. And as councillors, it's our role to question what comes before us, particularly financial delegations.
Point of order, we're talking about guardrails and...
I'm sorry, we're talking about tendering. We are talking about tendering.
No, point of order.
Well, what's the point of order?
Or to stick to the guard railing and fencing that we're talking about.
Just
Sorry, what was that, Councillor Ring?
Just put it to the vote.
Thank you. I'll put it to vote. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. $3.9. 3.9, updated policy 1020, leasing and licensing. Could I have a mover, please?
Yeah, happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Ring. Councillor Marnie.
My apologies. Firstly, thanks for the completion of this. It's obviously been a point of some conversation over the last 12 months. I've just got a couple of comments. We're very happy to see it go out. Just with if no submissions are received, and it continues to be an issue for us as a council, connecting with our community, getting them involved in commentaries in advance of a policy being adopted rather than when the consequences of it start to play out. There is a statement in there, if no submissions are received or in the General Manager's view the submissions do not warrant referral to Council, the policy be adopted. I do have considerable confidence in your decisions around this, Mr. General Manager. However, I just ask that if there, as it is an open-ended statement, if there are any comments that relate to capacity to pay or the potential to see community services withdrawn because of a cost implication, I would ask that they come back to Council. I look at the category B and I don't necessarily agree with this statement. I'm not sure whether it needs to be considered, and obviously we'll get some feedback from community groups that attract a peppercorn rent. He talks about the licensee having no ability to generate income from the use of the premises. Now, there are situations where we'll get not-for-profit settings which will allow that community venture to deliver a service. I'd just like us to be mindful of the implications of what that statement's saying. I just could see it being read in very concrete terms, and because somebody makes an income on the site, not necessarily a profit, but and maintains the running costs of the service, that may become an issue. I'm also interested in how the function of council is defined, given that councils increasingly, as they've gone along in local government over the last 30, 40 years, have really moved to quite a diverse range of partnerships and services that are out there. So I'm just mindful of where that sits. And I think it's important that community development mustn't be all about the income. It's very much about the outcomes. And whilst we need to consider those income issues, the outcomes are significantly greater, and I'd put it at times they're priceless. We just need to look what happened on Saturday night. We had a venue which came together with 3 community groups.
Please keep on topic, Councillor.
I'm talking about how, well, I'll go to council examples if you like. They're not as compelling and they end pretty terribly.
No, I think we're talking about leases at the moment.
No, I'm talking about community development and how our use of leases and not being focused purely on the income and looking at the outcomes of how community can work together when they're enabled through bodies that can bring forward premises to be utilised, can achieve great things. But anyway, I'll skip past that. I'll leave it at that.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Yeah, second that. So,
Councillor,
look, I'm happy with the changes, and leases and licenses are just not about built items. It's also about land. And we have some community...
Point of order. Whilst the Mayor has her microphone on, the camera never goes anywhere except to the Mayor. I just thought I'd point that out.
continue, Councillor Ring, thank you.
Okay. The leases and licenses what this is referring to is not just for buildings. It's also for land And we do have some community groups that are looking after lands. There is land that's leased down in Glen Davis, which is used for nature conservation and for community use. They don't generate money per se. Other groups do. I think that the clarification of two categories is long overdue. I think Sandra's done a very good job on it. There is obviously confusion moving forward on what core functions are councils, given the changes in the last 20 years. But these policies aren't set in stone. They can be reviewed in the future if there's a legitimate need. And if anyone has difficulty, who has a lease for a particular building or land, has financial difficulty, they can apply to council through the community development for financial assistance. They could ask for support. I'm still not sure that linking it in with the Crown Management Act is really relevant, since we've only got probably potentially 2 properties that fit there. But I think as a starting point, let's leave it there and see how the community reacts. They're the ones who have to deal with it. We can move forward. We can review. And any council on the next council can make representations on behalf of the community and either move for modifications or an additional review. So I think let's get it out to the community, let them have a look and get their feedback. But I think, yeah, basically I'm happy with where it's come to.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie.
Yes, I'll take it on this occasion. We have seen episodes where the introduction of an income-based approach to our lands has seen services withdrawn in our community. I won't talk to the positives. I've been directed not to, but this is the issue I wish to talk to in a positive frame, but was not allowed to, is that we can't allow community development to be all about the income and not the outcome. Once we start travelling down that path, then we start losing the people that can generate 25,000 into health care support through their work in those settings. So I just would like to make that point. I'll pick up on what Councillor Ring also spoke to, that we also have land parcels that generate income for third parties, not for profit, but commercial income. Those issues need to be dealt with in a timely fashion. I've raised them on numerous occasions in this council term. They're still yet to be resolved. That, for me, needs to be a priority. It might not be me taking it forward in the future, but that's a disappointment that that hasn't been resolved.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Thank you. No, sorry, right of reply. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 3.10, adoption of draft Lithgow Local Infrastructure Contributions Plan, Section 7.12, 2024. Can I have a mover, please?
I'll move it.
Councillor Ring, a seconder, thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Ring.
It has gone to the community. It's doesn't mean I still have concerns and issues with it, but particularly in how we expend the funds. But my understanding still is that it's only for 12 months, the funding section of it, and that will be reviewed in the next council with a longer term plan, and we'll look at the outlying areas rather than a Lithgow-centric approach.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Bryce.
It's disappointing again to see no submissions were received for this particular piece of work. But I'm happy with the actual plan itself.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? No? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
No, just put it please, Mayor.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. The division on that, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Bryce, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor McGee, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Statham. Thank you. Item 3.11, P&R, 22nd of the 7th, 2024, MOD DA 046/23, modification, Lithgow Aged Care modification, 38 Maple Street, Maple Crescent,
Yeah.
Lithgow.
Move it now, Stephen.
Have a seconder, thank you.
I'll second on that statement.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
I looked at this report with great interest, given my previous involvement with this facility. I support it. The reduction in the number of beds is concerning that's proposed, but it's not a large number. And given that the reduction in beds to ensure the financial viability of this facility well into the future, then it's a good move. Modifications will also enhance the visual amenity of the site for both residents and the broader community by reducing the overall bulk of the facility. Buildings that were going to be retained are now going to be removed. It'll make it a much more open space, and I think it'll be a good outcome for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor Statham, I'm happy that it goes through. We've waived the contributions, the 64 contributions and the 94A contributions. Happy for it to go through.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Marnie.
Can I ask a question for you, Mayor Stephen, to start? Was there any conversation about future stages that they'd look at returning that capacity as far as bed numbers, or is that there's nothing in the pipeline?
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Mr. Elwood would speak to that. Thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. Councillor, the initial discussions in regards to proposals to change the number of beds available and reduced has been held at that. There were some initial discussions about what the future implications could be and whether the proposal would future-proof the site for potential expansion. At this stage, though, the direction was focused on retaining the beds to ensure financial viability and seeing where it headed into the future. And further, we can raise those specific questions at a later stage with the proponent.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Ring.
Just to say, from what the report says, there's only 12 beds that are being reduced. Still hasn't been built yet. It will lead to an overall increase of beds available in what is an ageing community. So I think it's a good outcome for the community.
That was right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin and Councillor Bryce. Councillor Statham, thank you. Page 49, 3.12, new EPA waste levy review submissions.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Who moved that, please? Councillor Marnie, thank you. And Councillor Ring.
That's all right. That was right.
Right. Okay, thank you. Who moved it? So, yeah, Councillor Marnie, thank you.
We got a very good presentation and understanding of this in the last waste group. And for a council, a regional council that doesn't have huge funds, we're seeing some significant innovations and improvement in waste management, and obviously to have to return a waste levy back to the state government is an impact on that income, because we're seeing great value for money out of the money that's going into the waste program at the moment. So I'm happy to support the submission as developed during that meeting, and I thank the staff again for their work in this area.
Thank you.
I'm pretty much on the same line as Councillor Marnie. We don't want any additional fees to the EPA. We want to retain as much as we can from that facility. It's best for us, best for our community.
Any other speakers? Councillor Ring?
I support the submission that's been prepared by the administration. It's clear that the waste levy that was introduced by the state government, particularly for the Sydney councils, has failed. Millions of dollars, very small amount of that comes back into the community, very small amount that's used for recycling or for anything else. It's nothing more than a money grab by state government. This funds should be used to ensure recycling occurs and that manufacturing moves towards the concept of a circular economy. That means ensuring that we have products that can be repurposed and don't have to go on the ground. Thank you.
Any other speakers, please? Right of reply, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 3.13 Lithgow Local Environmental Plan 2014 Housekeeping Planning Proposal.
Happy to move it.
Happy to second it.
Before speaking to it, Mayor, I have two questions for you to the administration.
Certainly.
On page 55 of 91, it states council would resist further subdivision of Cullenbullen until completion of its growth management strategy. What is the time frame for this? And what is the carrying capacity of the Cullenbullen sewage treatment plant? That's the first question, or the first two questions.
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. The timeframe for the growth management strategy is within the next 12 months. Now, the reason for that is the growth management strategy contributes quite significantly to the review of the 2014 LEP, which has currently commenced. That LEP review is intended to be completed and, depending on Department of Planning, endorsed within a 24-month period as our current schedule. Thank you. And through yourself, Mayor Statham, Mr. Trapp.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Mr. Trapp, thank you.
Carrying capacity of the Cullenbullen sewage treatment plant.
Through you, Mayor Statham. So currently it's set up to have a capacity of about 300 people. We can change that capacity through some minor configurations up to about 500.
Thank you. The other question I have, Mayor Statham, is there are a number of residents on Hughes Lane that have been seeking rezoning. I believe their requests are legitimate. I was wondering why they have not been included within this report. I don't think they should have been changed from rural to a conservation zoning originally. It does impact.
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Council has been made aware of the implications of the 2014 LEP change for a number of the properties in Hughes Lane. The planning proposal housekeeping LEP is primarily focused on addressing issues that do not require significant policy change or investigation or address zoning changes for multiple properties. The intent is to evaluate and undertake, if necessary, any zoning changes for properties such as occurred for Hughes Lane, which I understand went from RU4 to E4. And there are also some other similar properties that had similar situations elsewhere in the LGA in the 2014 LEP. The intention is that the LEP review currently commencing will address those issues if it's required and identified as appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. The report itself is good. It's a shame it's taken so long to get this housekeeping done. They're generally minor issues, but it should have been done some time ago. Obviously, lots of reasons for that, but it's good to see it happening.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. And Councillor Bryson. Yeah, Councillor Leslie, do you have a question? Thank you. Or Yeah, well, it's Councillor Rice seconded it.
Yeah. As I concur with Councillor Ring, it's good to see that this housekeeping of all these land zones and stuff has been done. And obviously the new LEP will also address any other outstanding issues. It'd be good to get that started and get that finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you. On the bottom of page 54, speaking about the Cullen Bullen, there's a council proposes that the identified vacant allotments should have their dwelling entitlements reinstated as the development outcomes for these lands would be consistent with the existing built environment. The residents of Cullen Bullen in the past were very unhappy, to put it mildly, that their building, those allotments were restricted. But that had to be because the allotments were too small to have a septic tank on them without that septic tank actually affecting and impacting their neighbours. Now, with the new Cullen Bullen sewage scheme there, that problem has now been eliminated, and it's quite right that those properties have their entitlements reinstated. So I think that's an excellent outcome for the people of Cullen Bullen, and it's a great outcome with this particular one. The other question I have is the one on page 62 relating to the Lithgow General Cemetery. Now, if I could get some clarification of this, because the map or the diagram on page 62 has Lithgow Cemetery in two allotments, I assume that is, in yellow, and then there's the red bit. Is that a parcel of land that is currently being used as a cemetery, but doesn't have the zoning for it? Is my understanding of that correct?
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
That is correct, Councillor. There's a small portion of that parcel that has some cemetery activities taking place. So this proposed change will make sure that is compliant with zoning.
Well, I think that's a sensible thing. So that's C for environmental living zone, is it? That's quite an interesting name for a cemetery. Is that's correct? Is it? So that's and well, my next question then is the little purple strip on this map immediately to the left of that. What's the purpose, or what's the outcome of that little purple strip? That is how does that relate with everything else? It doesn't seem clear to me again.
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. I will take that on notice and get a response for you, Councillor, and to Council. The indications for the purple, it's not one zone. There's multiple zones within the purple. It's blocked out on that purpose. So potentially it could be a corridor or current reserve access.
But it's privately owned land.
I can't confirm that. I will get back and
remaining slither of privately held land sandwiched between SB2 infrastructure and the adjoining C4 environmental living zone. Right. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Councillor Coleman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Statham. This is a substantial amount of work in this. I mean, it mentions Cullen Bullen, and it mentions Lawerawang, and it mentions Portland. And my understanding is that then once this is approved, taking that it is approved, that its proposal is forward to the Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure for a gateway of determination. And my understanding in the report states that it could take 10 to 12 months. My question is through you, Mayor, to Mr. Elwood, what happens after that? Can that department come back and say, we're not happy with this, we're not happy with that? Can it go, what happens if the department comes back with concerns?
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. So following the outcome of this evening's review of this paper, if Council adopts and recommends to move forward with this proposal, this proposal and outline of it is provided to the Department of Planning in August, and the department will then come back with what's called a gateway determination to Council to give a general indication that it supports the progression of Council to continue to work towards and lodge the housekeeping LEP. When that is formally lodged with Department of Planning, they have their period of time they will review and come back to Council with any concerns or issues they raise. At this stage, if they do come back with any concerns, we will have to address them at that time. It's difficult to give a time frame then on what the implications are. Where Council is currently undertaking our approach to how the housekeeping LEP is addressed is based on the recent experiences of other similar councils that have put through housekeeping LEPs, although albeit quite a few of those have been for very general administrative issues. We are taking a number of more proposals in our housekeeping LEP than some of the recent councils.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Marnie? Please turn your microphone on, Councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I was just saying it's a substantial report covering a lot of territory, and as we have an information session, if you'll bear with me, if I can ask you a couple of questions and just maybe make one or two statements. Obviously, the addition of the artisan food and drink industry definition is, I think, a good thing, which will provide tracking with trends that are happening in our region. Obviously, it took a long interest in the flooding area. I have some concerns in regard to still understanding and feeling comfortable that we're actually going to have a stormwater management plan at some stage, because I'm still seeing the two flood components, those that are happening where water's exiting streams and those where people are being inundated by overland flows and are hitting no longer fit for purpose. And I appreciate what Mr. Edgecombe's doing with the Cuprose Street intersection, which is precisely that situation. So I just want to see that that's adequately captured in there. Perhaps I should just ask these one at a time rather than do them and then come back to it. I've only got a couple, but in order to support it, I need to be clear on this, please.
Your first question, thank you, Councillor Marnie.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to repeat that. I just need to be clear that we will. I understand we're dealing with zonings, but part of the problem with this zoning is I think half of it is resolved through replacement of man-built infrastructure, where we built constraint points either in the drainage system or in streams or wherever, and that they're being rectified. My concern is that we're placing a very large parcel of land under this new flood zone, and I know this was a particular concern of the residents. So I'm just wondering, in our future planning, are we looking at a stormwater plan which would then potentially take people out of those red zones, if I've explained it reasonably?
Mr Edgecombe, thank you.
So I was considering this matter just today because I had cause to recall the council's resolution over the weekend that we develop a stormwater management plan. And I've drafted a memo for Ross that he hasn't yet had the time to consider, but it's important that we have integrated planning in terms of asset management. And as it stands, we're in the process of developing a brand new set of stormwater asset management plans, and we've got the floodplain risk management plan. And I see those as being the two key documents that feed into a stormwater management plan itself. So, as I've proposed to Ross, I would hope that we see the council could see the fruits of both the floodplain risk management plan and the stormwater asset management plans prior to the development of the stormwater management plan itself before it's put forward to the community, so it's contemporary and holistic and representative of the full state of play.
Thank you, Mr Edgecombe.
The second question just relates to the rezoning of Lithgow City Council's Works Depot at Wallerawang. Now, I'm looking at a current RE1 public recreation zoning, just noting the impact when we had development within recreational zones at Tony Luchetti. Just want to be confident that whilst we may have a lull in activity in that zone, that we're not compromising it going into the future. If some of the proposals that are coming forward with statements of potential industry sectors moving to Lithgow and Wallerawang's a prime point of this, I just want to make sure our future planning doesn't diminish that recreational capacity of that land.
Mr Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. That is correct. That anticipation and outcome to retain the amount and the availability of recreation land has been considered. The intention of our longer term planning is not to reduce available recreational sporting or facilities land unless there's very clear indications that it's inappropriate, such as the gradients or the site's actually not able to fulfil its purpose.
Thank you. The concern being, and I'm not getting into debate with you, Mr. Elwood, so I'm just continuing what I was saying, is that as we can see the consequences of what happened at Tony Luchetti, that there may be some ancillary facilities that may sit off the actual recreational ground that we've just got to make sure they don't compromise that going into the future. Other than that, I'm happy to put my trust in the report, and I thank you for the amount of detail that's gone into it and the number of issues that have been dealt with.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, thank you, Councillor Ring.
No, thank you, Mayor Statham.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. There'll be a division, so keep your hands up. Thank you. Councillor Marnie, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring, Councillor Coleman, Councillor McGee, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Statham. Thank you. 3.14, Investment Report, June 2024. Have a mover, thank you.
I'll move it, Mayor Statham.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Have a seconder, thank you. Councillor Bryce. Councillor Marnie. I'm not sure who was first.
Yeah, okay, I'll second it.
I'll do it.
So who moved? Councillor Ring? Right. Councillor Goodwin.
Mayor Statham, it's just a standard report that comes through, although I do see where it says there, interim 30th of June 2024 cash and investments balance indicates that there's an $834,000 shortfall in working capital, but I think that's going to be sorted out as the end of the financial year rolls around. Is that correct?
Mr Gurney, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, that is correct. As part of the financial statements, work and audit, that will be rectified.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin and Mr Gurney. Councillor Ring, thank you.
Yes, Mayor Statham, this is a very important report, particularly for the community, because it highlights where money is retained and the fact that Councils are not sitting here with $80 million that we can spend on anything. The money is for targeted programs. It's restricted through either internal or external means. I do have one question for you, Mayor Statham, to the administration. Just for clarification on what the unexpended loans are on page 69 of 91.
Mr. Burney, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, I will take that on notice just to give a complete response. We did take out $1 million loan for the Cullenborn sewer scheme recently. That may be most of the amount there, but I will take that on notice and confirm by Memo.
No, thank you, Mr. Gurney. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Burney. Anybody else? Councillor Marnie?
I hear indirectly a lot of public conversation around assets we've got retaining that are non-productive and etc. I think these reports, and I reiterate what Councillor Ring was talking to, are important as part of our transparency and our contract with the community, that we actually report back and explicitly explain what we have in place, because there sometimes can be a perception that there's a whole lot of assets waiting to be cashed in, and that will rectify our financial situation in the long term. Clearly, there's large amounts of money in restricted assets that are there to fund grant-funded projects. They're tied to those outcomes, and these sort of reports provide us with that accountability. So I thank you for that.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Goodwin.
Let's put the.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. 3.15, financial assistance sporting representation.
Yes, I'd like to move this, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm happy
Leslie?
to second.
Actually, it's a
Have
slightly,
a seconder, thank you.
it's,
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, it's a slightly separate, different motion, which I have given to our Minutes Secretary. I'd like to move the following. I think I'm on the wrong one. My apologies.
All right, so who's the seconder?
I'll
Thank you.
second it.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Just one moment, please.
Yeah, sure.
I'll change this. The seconder was Councillor Goodwin. Goodwin? No, Councillor Ring. Councillor Leslie was not talking about that. Okay, Councillor Marnie, thank you.
I was just about to applaud Councillor Leslie for his developing interest in the game of rugby league. I won't be able to now. But again, this is a statement I make, and I made it when I wasn't a councillor. I came in to talk to the council. This is something this council has always done well, and has always done well for its sports advisory committees and the like. Obviously, a particular interest to me is rugby league. I was involved in coaching junior rugby league for a long time, and I'm currently the president of the senior rugby league side. So I'm particularly pleased to see Curtis Brown being supported in this occasion, and like all other emerging sports people in our community, I thank the council for their generosity and support to our young people and our people emerging in a representative sport. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Goodwin, thank you.
Yeah, Mayor Statham, great young little footy player. Curtis comes from a good football family. I think he's just on the up and up. I think we should support him wholeheartedly, and support the $300 that we're going to give him.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, thank you, Councillor Marnie. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous, thank you. 3.16, Lithgow Bowling Club proposed land swap.
Thank you, Mr. Statham. I'd like to move this one. I have, as I indicated earlier, I have moved
a seconder, thank you.
Can we hear what the?
I have moved a slightly. I will be moving a slightly different motion, and I have given that motion to our Minute Secretary. So, but I will read it. I'd like to move that one, agree to a land swap between Lithgow City Bowling Club Limited and Lithgow City Council, as outlined in point 1 of proposal to rectify the land discrepancy, which is page 75 of the report. That's very similar to the point 1 in the recommendation. Point 2 is the same as the recommendation. Point 3 is the same as the recommendation. And point 4 is that council pay all survey and registration costs. And point 5 is that each party pay their own legal costs arising from this land swap. Now, in speaking to it, it's very similar to the motion I just slightly changed.
I'm happy to second it.
No. Thank you for that. So in speaking to it, I draw the council's attention to the comment in the executive summary, the third paragraph. It's recommended that no consideration be paid by council or the club for the land swap. Now, I think that's very valuable, because it does show that Lithgow Council's administration has actually given some consideration to the value of the land and has determined that the interests of both parties are equally served by an equal swap. I think that's a great move forward. But there's a vast difference to the earlier recommendation, and I'm including a point 4 because it doesn't matter how long ago this error occurred. Lithgow Council, as the professional body, as opposed to the amateur sporting group, should have known better than to allow this to happen. And as this council, as that council's successor, we must take responsibility. An error occurred. Lithgow Council then, in 100 years ago, should have known better. They didn't. It went wrong. It needs to be fixed. And I think, therefore, our responsibility is that we do pay the survey and registration fees or costs. But I'm not prepared to go quite that far. I believe that since legal costs are necessarily indeterminate, that each body pays their own costs. So it's a small change. I think it's not going to be particularly much for the council, but it does indicate just a degree that responsibility, and perhaps in 100 years' time, when this council has to find that it's made an error, and that council has to do it. It's a little guidance for us to be cautious about actions we take. They never go away, and I think so. I'll move that.
Councillor Leslie, Councillor Ring, thank you.
I'm happy to go with it. I think it's a fair compromise. It doesn't alter significantly what the administration had recommended. It's clear from the report that council had formally acknowledged this some time ago, back in the 70s. There's no record, there's no paperwork, but the fact that the valuer general assessment of land values of the club and the council both incorporate both those blocks into their values shows that, this is on page 75, shows that council had actually approved it and had approached the valuer general, because without that approach, the valuer general would not have made those changes. I think this is a fair approach. Council pays for the survey and registration costs. Each party pay their own legal costs, and it removes the problem. I think it's a sensible approach.
Thank you, Councillor Ring. Any other speakers tonight? Councillor McGee.
Yes, I think it's very reasonable from the outset. But through you, Master Nathan, may I ask, what have the surveys? Where are the surveys up to at this stage? Because there must have been some done to identify these problems. So, and typically, what would the survey and registration costs be, and who would have footed them in the first place?
The General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, I'll take the question on notice because I'll just have to have those quantified. I'm not certain if anything has been spent. The financial implications say that nothing's been spent to date.
No.
Oh, it actually does say there $10,000 for survey, registration and legal expenses.
I'm sorry, that's for future potential impact. It's not saying it's been spent. It's only an indicative cost.
That's correct. In total, yeah. And most of that would, probably at least half of that would be the survey cost.
Thank you, Mr. Burney. Thank you, Councillor McGee. Anybody else wishing to speak? No?
Sorry, Mr. Just one question.
Councillor Goodwin? Yes.
In the picture on page 75 of 91, it's got a yellow outline of what the bowling club do own, and there's a car park part there that is not in yellow. Is that part of the bowling club as well, I would assume, or is that what the car park there, did the bowling club own that car park as well?
Through you, Mayor Statham, I will take that on notice. My understanding is that the highlighted section is the subject land, but I'll check about the ownership of that section of the car park that's at the bottom of the photo.
Thank you, Mr. Burney. Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. The car park at the bottom of the photo is not part of this report. It might be interesting to know who it belongs to, but it's not relevant to this particular land swap. Otherwise, I'll happy to just have the matter go to vote.
All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Karen, thank you.
I'll have a division on that if I may.
Certainly. Heads up those. For the motion, for the item, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Leslie, Councillor Marnie, Councillor McGee, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Statham. Thank you.
So what was that? Councillor Goodwin against, was it? You didn't have your microphone on.
3.1, proposal to enter a licence agreement with COC Limited. A mover, thank you.
Happy to move it.
Councillor Ring or Councillor Goodwin?
I moved. Councillor Goodwin seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Ring?
Look, I agree with the report. These sort of issues can't be open-ended. Council staff have made the appropriate approaches. There's been no response. I agree that we put it to bed at this point in time. I agree with the administration's recommendation.
Councillor Goodwin?
Oh, exactly the same, Mayor Statham. The administration have made several attempts to progress it, but those attempts have failed. They've left it open-ended so they can restart the process again at a later date if they want.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Anybody else wishing to speak? Right of reply, Councillor.
No, put the motion, please.
Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 3.18, canvassing of submissions, Local Government New South Wales Conference. Could I have the mover, please?
I'd like to move this with a minor amendment if I could.
Councillor Ring, your amendment before I ask for a seconder.
Yes, Mayor. In respect to point 2, so the point 2 reads, authorise the registration of the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and one other councillor to be elected at the 8th October 24 meeting.
I'm happy to second that.
Council pays a considerable amount of money to be a member of local government in New South Wales. That provides us with free votes. We should be utilising those votes, particularly since tonight we're also talking about what we want raised as a council there. Staff attending, yes, I've been to meetings and having staff there can be good, it can be very supportive, but what is critical is having free councillors there that can vote. I've no problem with the senior executive being there, but for all councillors, it's actually a good opportunity for training and experience. And I believe that all councillors should get an opportunity to attend these conferences.
I have a seconder, thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I think it's important that we fully take this opportunity to be at the Local Government New South Wales Conference, irrelevant of who it may be, but we need to utilise every single vote that we have to ensure that the agenda of Lithgow City Council is put through.
Madam Mayor, I have an amendment, if I may.
Councillor Ring, your amendment?
Councillor Leslie, and that is that the words three delegates replace mayor, deputy mayor, and one other. So the second one would read: authorise the registration of 3 delegates to be elected at the October 8th, 24 meeting. That's my amendment. If I could speak to that.
First of all, Councillor Ring, would you accept that?
No, at this point, I'd rather if Councillor Leslie could get someone. I agree with the sentiment, but I think it's an issue that can be dealt with by the next council. That's something that can be looked at going forward, but I think it's really critical we have free votes. Who those people are doesn't matter. Once we get to the next council, regardless of who here is there, the mayor and deputy mayor may not be available to go for personal reasons. But that's an issue that can be dealt with down the track. At the moment, what's critical is getting free bums on the seats so we get free votes at this meeting. That's critical.
If I could speak to my amendment then.
Councillor Leslie? You need a seconder, Councillor Leslie. So read your amendment, please.
Right. The point 2, that the first paragraph of first phrase of point 2 is that authorise the registration of 3 delegates to be elected at the 8th of October 2024 meeting, and then the rest of that clause remains the same as printed. And speaking to it,
Hang on. Thank you, because Councillor Ring's not accepting that. So we need a seconder for your motion. Councillor
Yeah,
Marley.
I'm happy to
Thank you.
accept it. I'll second it, sorry.
right. In speaking to it, we don't know who, there's an election coming up, and then after that there's a mayoral election and a deputy mayoral election. We're not sure who will take those positions. The mayor and the deputy mayor elected would be elected on their merits for their service to Lithgow City Council, not elected because they would want to go to the local government conference. They may want to go to the local government conference, in which case I would have no doubt that having just been elected as the mayor of this city, that they would also be appointed as delegates to the conference. But not every mayor wants to go. I do know that Mayor Greenhill of Blue Mountain City Council never goes to the conference.
That's irrelevant. Point of order. That's irrelevant to this council.
Here, other, we're talking about here in our Lithgow City Council area. Thank you.
Okay. It may be that an unnamed member of this council who becomes mayor may not want to go, just like unnamed members of other councils, mayors do
Point
not
of
go.
order. Can he?
Oh, really?
Councillor Leslie, we're not out in the bush. I can hear you really clearly. You're very, very loud in your demeanour. So just sort of settle down. Councillor Councillor Bryce, I've already asked you to just keep in our area. No one else's, no comparisons, just our
Right.
own. We've got to look after ourselves.
Okay. The council, we elect, we choose to have 3 councillors. The recommendation at the moment is only to have 2 councillors represent us. The recommendation is that we only have 2. So the administration's recommendation is we only have 2. But I agree with Councillor Ring that we need 3, and my amendment does not change that. All my amendment does is allow the new council to choose those 3 on their merits without taking any indication of their status as mayor or deputy mayor. It allows it's easier. If the mayor and deputy mayor wish to be delegates, they will indicate so at that meeting. If they don't wish to indicate so, then of course this motion becomes harder to implement, because suddenly we have a motion that needs, to be rescinded, because that's not what we have. So I think it's just making the motion easier to be implemented.
Councillor Coleman. Councillor Marnie, that'll change. Sorry, I beg your pardon. Councillor Marnie.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with what Councillor Ring said. We're a small regional council. We've accepted and talked to a lot about the pressures placed on councils like ourselves. We're going into a large metropolitan setting where I don't think any of the metro councils, and sorry, I'll mention someone else, but they're not going to not send their delegates. Their voices are going to be big, and we need to take every voice we've got available to us. My tendency is to say that it should be the mayor, deputy mayor, and another councillor. The mayor's been elected by the elected council because they're determined that they wish that person, by the majority of councils, to be their representative. Similarly to the deputy mayor. So I'm comfortable if the deputy mayor and mayor attend with an additional councillor, but I do not support underselling the importance of the conversations that we need to have in these forums.
Point of order. I thought we were debating Councillor Leslie's amendment of sending 3 delegates, not 3, but not necessarily the mayor and the deputy mayor. That's what the amendment is, isn't it? Yeah, so it's a little bit confusing, that.
Right. Anybody else wishing to speak? Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
I understand where Councillor Leslie is coming from. What he's trying to do is ensure flexibility in the recommendation. I believe that we should be sending 3, irrelevant of whether it's the mayor, deputy mayor, or another. But I understand where Councillor Leslie is coming from, but I can't support it because I've already committed to supporting the mayor, the deputy mayor, and one other.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce.
I'd find it very hard to believe that a newly elected mayor and deputy mayor would not attend the conference. You've had your turn. So I find it very difficult to believe that we need to not have them on our them as our representative. They've been voted in by the majority of the council, and therefore they are the representative of ours. Having an extra person is an extra vote. That's fine. I accept that, but the deputy mayor and mayor need to go.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor McGee.
Yes, I'm glad Councillor Coleman understands it, because that was a lot of talk and it sounded very convoluted to me. So I think Councillor Ring put a lot of effort into his changes, and so I don't support the amendment. I support Councillor Ring's original motion.
speak? I'll put Councillor Leslie's amendment
Yes.
or right of reply. Sorry, Councillor.
I was just going to say, Miss, there's absolutely no way in the world Councillor Leslie would have ever accepted this when he was mayor. He would have insisted to go. The mayor and the deputy mayor should go, and if another person wants to go, happy to send another delegate.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. If there's
Point of order.
Excuse me.
Point of order. Point of order.
What's your point of order, Councillor?
I've just my own thoughts have just been decided by Councillor Goodwin. What gives him the right to say what I would have done and what would not have done?
Councillor Goodwin's talking about
Rot. Yeah.
No, it's not rot. It is. Can you imagine any other council in New South Wales suggesting whoever the mayor will be in the future, whoever the deputy mayor will be in the future? Can you imagine?
We're not allowed to talk about other councils.
Exactly. So
which I would have done. Actually did do, but we weren't allowed to talk about other councils.
Can we?
But we might want to know why Councillor Goodwin didn't bother going to the conference recently as deputy mayor. Could we get an answer on that one?
Goodwin, I'm sure you'd like to speak to that.
No, a point of order.
It's not relevant anyway.
Yeah, not relevant.
It's not relevant. Back on track. Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Would you like right of reply to your amendment? I'm going to put it now. Councillor Leslie, I'm putting your amendment now. All those in favour of Councillor Leslie's amendment? Thank you, Councillor Leslie. That's certainly been lost, just your own vote. Now, come back to Councillor...
Have a division on that, please.
Absolutely, you can, for sure. All those in favour of Councillor Leslie's amendment is all councillors except only one councillor, Councillor Leslie. All the other councillors are against that amendment. Thank you.
So Councillor Leslie is the only one voting for it?
That's correct. Moving on, it certainly didn't, the amendment doesn't become the motion, that's for sure. So go back to the original motion with points added by Councillor Ring. Could you please say those points again, Councillor Ring? They're actually on the screen as well.
They're on the screen.
Yes, but I can't see the screen, so please repeat it.
Authorise the registration of the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and one other councillor to be elected at the 8th October 2024 meeting. And if I could just add, Mayor Statham, if I were the Mayor or the Deputy Mayor and the next council is not available going, I don't see that there's any serious impediment to picking up the phone or throwing out an email to other councillors saying who would like to go. I see no problem with it. And as I said, next council can make the decision if they want to review it.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll put the motion, Councillor Ring's motion, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Unanimous, thank you. Council committee reports now. Audit Risk Improvement Committee, the ARIC. Could I have somebody move this report? Thank you.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce.
I'll second this, though.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
Nothing much to say about it.
Councillor Goodwin.
No, nothing at all.
Anybody
like
else
to
wishing to
speak,
speak? Councillor Ring.
Hey, I'm the good looking one, seriously. ARIC is a mandated committee. There are a number of issues within the report that are critical which councillors should be aware of. On the next council, I'd actually like to see some of those issues brought to information sessions so we could get a better understanding of some of those processes. The way ARIC has been set up, there is no councillor voting member. ARIC is taking over a governance role. We have also a governance role, and we need to understand what is being dealt with at these meetings. Not necessarily in a full meeting where we're going to debate a lot of issues, but it would be nice to go over some of these issues in information sessions. I think they're critical for all councillors for good governance. I do have a question, Mayor Statham, as I may, for you, to the administration. Section 7.2 of the Terms of Reference refers to the councillor who's appointed to that and how they engage with other councillors. I'd just like the administration's view or opinion on how that would work moving forward. Given that this Terms of Reference is new, And this is it really is a critical committee that all councillors should be aware of when it's happening, and how to best get that information in. Will it be an administrative procedure with staff sending out emails to all councillors, or will the responsibility be placed on the councillor who's a member?
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham. The terms of reference are based on the model provided by the Office of Local Government. To be honest, we will have to really do some work on that. So I will take that to the new council. We'll have an information session on the ARIC. I agree that it is a critical and very important committee to the council, and we do have to have it. As required by the guidelines and the regulations now. So the practicality and the role of the observer non-voting member will do some more work on that with the new council.
Appreciate that, Mr. Gurney. If I may, Mayor Statham, just one other question. As with other committees, is it possible for other councillors in the future, if they're interested, to sit in purely to observe?
Mr. General Manager, thank you.
Through you, Mayor Statham, that isn't part of the terms of reference. The councillors would be permitted to put questions in writing to the committee, and that would be how it would work. I know it is covered in the terms of reference, but I haven't got it right in front of me.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak tonight? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. All those in favour say aye. Against was Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Carried. Thank you. 5.2 Community Development Minutes, 9th of July 2024.
I'll move this, please.
Councillor Bryce, thank you. Have a seconder, thank you.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Bryce.
A question for the administration. How was the conflict of interest issues dealt with in the committee? Can we just quickly go through that?
Pardon? Yeah. Mr. Elwood.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. The conflict of interest concerns that were identified at previous community development meeting were addressed through the advice that council received, looking at what potentially could be perceived as a conflict of interest and what would present a conflict of interest. The main issue represented was the fact that of the number of members at the committee, most members of the committee had an affiliation, either direct or very close to direct, with nominees or grant applicants that had put forward for a grant submission. The approach taken was that the administration would assess and put a recommendation forward to the committee of the grants that have been received for adoption by the committee and discussion by the committee. No direct voting per individual grant would be undertaken by members of the committee. The approach taken also was identified that for future application processes, the administration would prepare a very clear outline of the criteria that the administration would use in determining recommendations to put to the committee for grant applications. Those clear criteria were not formally prepared and adopted by the committee prior to this meeting. They will be prepared for future rounds, such as the second round of the Financial Grants Assistance Program in November.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Elwood.
Thank you. That was great, because there was some concerns of the conflict of interest on the first round of voting for this, and we did defer it till we got some advice on it. It's good to see that a lot of community groups have got some funding and only 2 missed out due to issues as outlined in the report. I'm really happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. In speaking to the report, I note that on page 87 on the bottom, item 7.5, Kramer Park grandstanding renaming, at the ordinary meeting of Council held 25th of March 2024, Council resolved to publicly exhibit a renaming proposal for the Kramer Park grandstand. And the committee, I believe, was advised by administration that this matter had been withdrawn from the agenda, but it also states on page 86, respondents will be thanked for participating in this process and advised of the outcome of their submissions in regards to Kramer Park grandstanding. The question I have is, how many submissions were there, and do we know where they landed? How many for yes, how many for no?
All right, good. Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Mayor Statham. That is correct, Councillor. The renaming proposal was publicly exhibited in the in the business paper that was provided to committee members prior to the committee. There was a business paper in that which I will arrange for circulation to all councillors tomorrow, which lists the 13 submissions received, of which, so I haven't got it directly in front of me, but my understanding it was 13, with 10 of those proposing alternatives or non-adoption of the proposal that was put forward. And that was, those are outlined in that business paper, and those are the submitters that will be responded to and advised of the outcome. I'll arrange for that business paper that accompanied the formal business paper for the last committee meeting to be circulated.
Thank you. Just speaking to it again, Mayor Statham, the conflict of interest was dealt with and it was worked through, and I am pleased that we did get there, because otherwise it would have been a very difficult situation.
Just to note, Mrs. Taylor withdrew her nomination, or not hers, the Portland Colts nomination, and other people's nomination for Mr. Taylor. And I believe that the community are quite happy to get a plaque up on the wall in the very near future. Thank you.
Question, if I may, Mayor Statham.
Yes,
On page 87, it states, staff state that a policy will be developed for the naming and renaming of council buildings and facilities. We already have a policy, policy 10.3, under property management. It spells out the process for naming council facilities after individuals, which is what we should have adhered to from the beginning.
Yes, I agree with that, Councillor Ring, but this was a totally different idea. And,
with respect, Mayor Statham, the policy spells out clearly how the renaming of council assets is to occur. It's not different.
That's why Mrs. Taylor pulled out, so it's all under control. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Bryce, Councillor Marnie?
I'm just noting a number of groups put in funding. They're getting anywhere between 50 and 60% of funding. Firstly, how does that impact on them delivering the outcome they want? And secondly, given we've levied $6.1 million out of the community through rates, we've got an extremely modest amount of money that we put into community development. Could I suggest that a report be brought to the next council on reviewing community development funds? And given we've got groups within our community that the economic impacts of those rate rises is not insignificant, that we have a program which can bring forward a response commensurate with that impact. Also note, and I appreciate Councillor Bryce has brought forward the issue of domestic and family violence, which I commend her for. We're only funding 60% of what they've asked us. And we're talking about $1,000 on what councillors have talked fairly passionately about tonight. I I would hope that we've got more capacity maybe in your community development budget going forward, that we can respond to trends emerging or trends that have not been adequately addressed in our community, and that we can turn around and support groups that are looking to do that.
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Through yourself, Ms. Statham. Yes, Councillor, we will be in the position to bring a paper to the next council meeting, talking about the proposals for how and what may be considered in grants proposals. It's also been brought to our internal discussion through the administration, potential other sources throughout the community, and the opportunities of potentially working with other significant grant providers to look at how we can better spread across the wider range of groups the opportunities that we have within the community. So those sort of discussions are intended to be taken up as well.
Thank you. I'll just finish it, please, Ms. Stokes. I suppose this is probably better placed with the incoming council. It's a reform that's going to have to go over budgets. Whilst we'd appreciate, as I expect all the councillors would appreciate, an indication, really this has got to be a decision for the next council as far as any allocation of budget and so on. But I appreciate your timeliness in dealing with that.
Mr. Elwood, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. So I'll just make one additional comment for that, Councillor. Council, the administration is also currently in the process of reviewing our community development structure in regards to staffing, budgets and approach. So if willing, it might be more appropriate to combine this grant assessment feedback for council with that review and the outcome of that, and then bring that to the new council.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Anyone else wishing to speak tonight? Right of reply, Councillor Bryce.
Another matter that was brought up at the committee meeting when we first discussed these grants was the unspent funds. A lot of committees previously had, say, asked for $2,000, we gave them $1,000, weren't able to run their function and kept the money. We need to be able to make sure that this money is spent. And if it's not spent, it's recovered. So I would like to see that in our new in the policy as well. And apart from that, I think we've done really well. The $10,000 for the fireworks at Wang that bring huge amount of community together is a really good spend, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Unanimous. Thank you. 5.1, National General Assembly held in Canberra. Could I have a move, please? Thank you, Councillor Goodwin.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I'm just happy that you brought back a report from the National General Assembly that outlines a lot of good things that have been done and are continuing. I'm happy with the report.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Councillor Bryce.
Same. I'm happy with the report.
Anybody else wishing to speak? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Carried. Thank you. Business of great urgency. Thank you. Do we have any this evening? No business of great urgency?
I do. I know I'm invisible mad sometimes, but I do.
Pardon?
I know that often I'm overlooked, but I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry about that, Councillor Leslie.
That's fine. I'd like to draw the council's attention to the traffic lines in outside of the complex in Lithgow Street. They're very faded, and there's a lot of traffic that comes from Hassans Walls Road into Valley Drive, into the complex itself, along Lithgow Street and Proto Street there. And I think it's with all the rain we've had, they're very hard to see, and I'd just like to draw the council's attention to it and perhaps move it as a matter of great urgency that this matter be relined urgently.
Mr. Richmond would like to speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. You're correct, Councillor Leslie. Just wish to advise that Lithgow Street is on the list for capital resealing this year on the renewal program. So the entire surface of that will be removed and repainted this financial year in its entirety. So you'll get a smooth surface plus brand new line marking. We're also looking to conduct that traffic impact analysis and strategic review of pedestrian and traffic thoroughfare through that area as well.
Just if I could speak to that.
Excuse me, just one moment, please. You've been given a report. Is there anything else you wish to say, Councillor?
Well, I've actually moved it as an urgency motion, but I'm happy to accept the report if I could clarify some of the questions. Some of the answer is.
Edgecombe, could you speak to Councillor Leslie? Councillor Leslie, I'm just asking Mr. Edgecombe to speak to you in regard to your points that you want to mention. Very happy to hear them.
Right. I think they are so faded that they need to have some immediate action. Whilst I appreciate that it's probably work that may be undone by a road surface, they have gone a long way, and I think that, and I don't know when the road surface will be done. When you said this year, of course, that could still be 6 months away or 5 months away, and I wouldn't like to see this matter not been addressed if that's the length of time.
Through you, Mayor Statham, what I might suggest is that I'll speak with staff first thing tomorrow morning, and we will contact contractors because one of the tenders that was approved tonight was the resealing of Lithgow Street. So I'll arrange for dates to be received from contractors. If it's a reasonable time frame for that project to occur, if we can give it priority and get it done in a reasonable time frame, we'll leave the line marking until afterwards. However, if it's months away, we'll look to see if we can get those lines painted first. But I will provide a memo to councillors on the outcome of the process.
Thank you very much.
Is that Councillor Leslie? You're happy with that, Councillor Leslie?
Yes.
Right.
Now that I've got clarification on it,
Right.
yes, I am.
Thank you very much.
Can
Councillor Marnie?
Just on that subject, I have written through to yourself, Jonathan, but by Mr. Krillman. I've had representations in regard to young people failing their licence test because that route is part of the test and they can't position themselves properly in the lane. I've driven it and had a look at it during daylight and night, and it's close to non-existent, particularly the right hand heading towards town, turning into Audi. It's very hard to read that and position yourself properly if you're an inexperienced driver. So there's consequences and a little bit of reputational damage sitting out there for us as well as a safety issue.
Yes, Nathan, just for the record, I've had the same representation and sent the same emails off to council as well.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you.
I wish I could get the same sort of option to put things like that.
We're still in a meeting, thank you. Mr. Edgecombe, you're going to look into that ASAP. All right, thank you. Thank you, councillors. If there's no other business of great urgency, Councillor Marnie.
Sorry. Could I just ask that I'm getting a running of complaints about water supply in Portland. Could I
all
ask
are, so they know about that. I'm quite sure it's an urgent matter.
Well, if they
Councillor
haven't
Marnie.
got any water, it's pretty urgent.
Yes, there might be an update. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
So through you, Mayor Statham, yeah, we had a pretty significant break on one of our lines in Portland over the weekend. It took staff quite a period of time to find the break. It was found today at about lunchtime and repaired pretty quickly. The East Portland area was out of water for the vast majority of last night, with it returning around lunchtime or earlier today. So yeah, the water supply has returned though, I believe.
Mayor Stephen, could I just ask, when we have
Thank you,
these,
Councillor Marnie.
just to ask that when we have these situations in the future, because it is very stressful for people, that there was a post that went up, but when it's the next day and you still got no water, if we could get those posts up just to keep people informed, because like other councils, we all get people calling us or text messages. It's a lot easier if the administration could just get it up. And I believe there was more than the one break, from what I've been told. So yeah, just be nice to have that out there for the community.
Well, I think we're all concerned about matters of great urgency, but if you feel they're a matter of great urgency, contact the council immediately. Don't leave it for days, because it's a month before each meeting.
I
get
wrote
onto
on
it
the previous issue on the day I was told.
Thank you. Thank you for the people watching from home in the public gallery and councillors. Meeting 8:28. Thank you.